2 days ago, what is it today? 18th. Yeah, 2 days ago, we had the release of the rape gang inquiry in England, which I think is going to turn out to be one of the pivotal events in the 20th century, in the 21st century, because it could completely overturn the order in the UK that has continuity since the Glorious Revolution in 1688. And the bomb just exploded 2 days ago, and now the British people are starting to digest it, and you can see the anger mounting, and there's no more denying it. There was this consistent attempt to deny it by saying, oh, if you talk about the grooming gangs, you're a racist, you're stigmatizing the Muslim population, blah blah blah. Now it's finished. That whole thing is over, and the problem is so deep. It's so deep. It permeates practically the whole of the British establishment, because the cover-up was run by two prime ministers, Gordon Brown and Keir Starmer. Mainstream media said nothing in 2 days. The royal family said nothing in 2 days. I think the British people are about to explode in anger. And so what happened? The day before the inquiry came out, British Royal Marines boarded a Russian vessel in the English Channel, a provocation. And then the next thing that happened, a Russian frigate came, and then like a private speedboat went and targeted the Russian frigate, which fortunately didn't lead to an incident. But then this morning, Moscow wakes up to practically apocalyptic scenes of the biggest yet Ukrainian drone attack. And so the skyline of Moscow is just like black smoke. And it seems to me that the British are desperate now to get some kind of a big war going, to provoke the Russians, because at home, the situation is on the verge of a revolution or a civil war. And the system is completely losing legitimacy. And, the Middle East in 2019, it was the British leading the pressure campaign on Trump to go to war against Iran. The British are leading instigators of war in Ukraine against Russia. They signed the 100-year partnership to provide drone technologies to the Ukrainians. So the Russians know perfectly well that it's the British behind all this drone warfare against the Russians. And by now, the British are not even bothering to conceal it, because they want the Russians to react and begin a bigger war, to deflect attention from domestic issues and to turn people's anger towards an external enemy. So it seems to me that everything is coming together, and that this must be discernible to Trump. And he has to make a decision what side he's on. Because if you're on the side of Israel, you're on the side of the global empire. And then you're against Russia, against China, against Iran, and so forth.
Yeah, I think the case of Ukraine is getting more complicated. In G7 summit, we've seen that I don't know if Macron said that Donald Trump is getting closer to the position of Europeans, and he wants to put more pressure on Russia. And the point, Alex, which was raised by Donald Trump, again, says that this war is taking too much time, and they're not doing anything on the battlefield. He was, every time he comes out and he tries to picture the war as this way again. He says, why they're not doing something on the battlefield? But they don't understand the complexity of issue in Ukraine. The case of Ukraine is too complex, in my opinion, because as you mentioned, they have the support from Europeans. They're providing right now, the manpower is not there. They don't have the weapons because of the war of the United States and Israel against Iran in the Middle East. They have depleted many of those missiles and interceptors. So they didn't have that much to send it to Ukraine. But after all, Ukraine has managed to produce these drones together with Europeans, together with Germany, United Kingdom. All of these countries are helping Ukraine to produce more drones, not to fight on the battlefield, but hitting civilians in Russia. This is the reality. This is a complex sort of situation. And Russia, we know from what we've seen so far in the battlefield, on the battlefield in Ukraine, is that Russia is not willing to kill the people in Ukraine the way that you see what Israel has done in Gaza, what they're doing in the southern part of Lebanon. That's not the case for Russia. Russia is fighting a fight on the battlefield. And the whole plan on the part of Russians is the eastern part of Ukraine. They don't want to go to the western part of Ukraine. They know that would be a huge trap for Russia to go there. And there is no point for Russia to go there. Nobody gonna welcome them if they go that far. So this is a hugely different area, and Donald Trump doesn't, again, in my opinion, the problem is in Washington. He doesn't understand the complexity of the issue. He wants to put an end, as he wanted in the Middle East. He thought that Benjamin Netanyahu is providing him with intelligence and everything going to be big and beautiful, do the so-called regime change in Iran. And he sees everything so simple in Ukraine as well. This is the problem, again, in Washington, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree with you, Nima. But, at this G7 summit, one interesting thing was that Trump was practically ignoring Keir Starmer. And he was also ignoring Vladimir Zelensky. So that's very interesting. And then this rape gang inquiry, which, it's really the biggest crime ever perpetrated against the British people, probably in history. It's absolutely enormous. It's been going on for decades. The 250,000 British girls that were raped is the conservative estimate. The real number is probably much, much higher. And it's now blowing open. And the United States, in some way, has played a role in this. Because back in 2019, there was a report prepared for Elon Musk. And that report has vanished, but I have a copy of it. And so that was a very, very scathing report, which was suggesting, because these rape gangs, it's not about sex, it's about money. These rape gangs don't just do rape and human trafficking. They do VAT fraud, they do mortgage fraud, they do insurance fraud. They generate a lot of money. And then this money is being laundered through British banks. And it's done almost certainly is done in collusion with the intelligence services, because it permeates the whole society. The politicians, the councils, the National Health Service, everything is involved in this. And they're generating billions of pounds every year. And some of that money in this report drafted for Elon Musk, some of this money was linked to the financing of 9/11 terror attacks and the 7/7 terror attacks. 9/11 was in New York, 7/7 was in London, 7 July 2005. And at least 80 million pounds has been traced going from these Pakistani organized crime groups in the UK to Osama bin Laden while he was hiding in Abbottabad mountains in Pakistan, while he was already being searched for. He was the most wanted person in the world. He received up to 80 million British pounds from these same, and the assumption is that this was being done deliberately, implying that the British government is an active sponsor and funder of terrorism that killed American people on 9/11. And anyway, that report disappeared. I cannot find it. But if you go to Elon Musk's Twitter page, his X post, he talks about Grok, about SpaceX, about Tesla, generally, his business interests, and about immigrant rape gangs in the UK. That seems to be his main political focus. And when Donald Trump came, when he was elected in November of 2024, Elon Musk had a pinned tweet on his X page, which said, should the United States liberate the people of Great Britain of their tyrannical government? His words. So there's some kind of a deep involvement. There's some kind of conflict that's probably could result in like a major inflection point for history, because the United Kingdom is involved in practically everything. Not the British people, the British ruling establishment. They're victimizing the British people. They're very actively supporting Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israelis. They're hiding all this, but it's all coming out. They're providing weapons, they're providing parts and ammunitions. They're flying spy planes, providing targeting data almost on a daily basis. So they're involved in everything, and it's creating a major conflict. And I think that this conflict will erupt at one point, and it's going to redefine the future of history, of humanity's history going forward. I'll just read you a statement by David Icke, which I happen to agree with. Quote, "A hidden network is driving the direction of human society into extreme dystopia and anti-human agenda. The rape gangs in the UK, it's not just the UK. We have to also say it's not just the UK. The exact same stuff is happening in France, Sweden, Norway, Germany, and maybe some other countries. Large scale, tens of thousands of rape cases by immigrants. And the governments of these countries are doing exactly the same as the British government. They're obstructing, they're covering it up, they're arresting victims. Like the victim will get like 2 years in prison, and the rapist will get like 10 hours of community service, something like that. And how is it that the same stuff is going on in Britain?
Yeah, Alex, this raping case is the cover for what they're doing, yeah? Or
yeah, it's just a part of what they're doing. It's just a small part, but basically, they're destroying the foundations from under our societies. They're really okay. So David Icke said extreme dystopia. I have to agree with that. That's the right terminology. And if they're not confronted, if this doesn't come out, then they're just continuing to destroy society. That they're trying to silence us. They're trying to introduce censorship. You see this conflict going on between the EU and X with Elon Musk in the middle. You see them concealing these human trafficking networks, the rape gangs, the who knows what else. Now France is starting to look like the United States. You have like these whole streets full of homeless people doing drugs, but practically the same thing. So anyway, it seems to me that the pressure on the British establishment is coming from the United States. What role does Trump play? I don't know. What role is Elon Musk playing? I don't know. But it's interesting that they are even involved.